a blessed Friday to us. The episode from the Gospel of St. Luke, only from the Gospel of St. Luke, about the birth of John the Baptizer, can also be seen from not just from the spiritual perspective, but from what is actually also very inclusive in our understanding of manifesting or living out our faith. For the reason that from the very beginning, when John the Baptizer was introduced, he is called, or he even claimed it himself, that he is the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. So his birth, therefore, can also be understood as the birth of the voice. And this voice is basically the instrument that, or for the word to be made known, to be made clear, to be manifested also, to be proclaimed wherever those who are instruments to the world and for the sake of humanity, for the salvation that God finally in His time has sent the voice first, followed by the Word Himself, the Word incarnate. Now, when I was actually when I went with a group to the Holy Land for a pilgrimage, it was, di na ako mahinumduman kayo, but at the beginning of the year 2000, when we went to Ain Karim, where John the Baptizer was born, there was a cave underneath the church. And in the cave, there is a very beautiful painting. And there depicted in the painting was, of course, Zechariah, Elizabeth, and some of her relatives, and even some priestly figures. And on the far right side, there is a woman, a young lady, carrying a baby. And if you go there, and normally you always understand when you see a young woman, a young lady carrying a baby, you would always say, oh, it is the Blessed Virgin Mary with Jesus, because that's what we are familiar with. But the real story of that painting, of that wall painting, is actually when John the Baptizer was born, Mary was still there, and Mary was only 3 months pregnant. So the baby that the young lady or Mary was carrying was not Jesus, but it was John the Baptizer. And this is a very beautiful imagery of the voice being witnessed by the Word Himself still at the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so this is a very beautiful day when we recall that the voice was born. And so too, for us, we are given the voice to shout out, not only, by the way, proclaiming God's salvation, but also for the many different concerns that we have for our welfare. And if ever there are voiceless in our community, we act as their voice or voices as well. This is the kind of truth that we have to understand, that we help each other. Kanang daghan kay nga mga yango-ungo ba sa kinabuhi. And if ever we can do something, then let that voice be heard. No, dili lang nang the voice nga kanta-kanta lang. Kundili kanang yung tingog diin ang kamatuoran ipahayag o ipadayag, especially in this world where there are so many different truths coming out in social media and in whatever we are practically experiencing. Unsa ang kamatuoran? It needs voice. But the voice can only be in itself useful when we choose the right words. And the right words is basically what the teaching and the faith is all about. That's why as we celebrate today the birth of the voice, 2 days from now, or just less than 2 days, the Word will be born, the Word incarnate, that is Christmas. So as we continue with this Eucharistic celebration, putting in mind the very exigency and the very need for people to be able to express themselves, especially as regards the truth, hopefully there will always be a voice that will help the truth come out in the world and for the world. Amen.